Well, Paul, people who tuned out a Raw a few seconds early thinking it was over missed a big angle. On the downside, this is a Raw that I think most people heard about in the United States before they had a chance to watch it. I know it's a holiday, but I don't know how many people decided they're going to watch it at 7 or 8 a.m.
Yep.
So big angle at the end. Braun Breaker attacking Seth Rollins, kind of out of nowhere, although his body language suggested he was getting a little sick of Seth. I can understand it. And then they played up this note. Well, I take it at face value that Paul Heyman was surprised and Bronson Reed was surprised because to what ends would they pretend they weren't? Unless, we can see it play out. Maybe there could be, but I doubt that's where they're going. So then you had Paul Heyman looked surprised, and Braun Breaker went up to Bronson Reed and says, "You got a choice. You can be with me or not. Up to you." And Michael Cole talked right over it. It was a huge moment in the angle, and he blew it because he was signing off the show, and Paul Heyman took sides after being sort of ambiguous or undecided. He grabbed Bronson and Braun's arms and raised them. And I thought that was a huge moment because it said Paul Heyman has decided to side with them against Seth, and Cole was just doing a sign off. And I don't know how they screwed that up. So it was a bummer. It lost a little bit of impact, I think. That said, ultimately, the main thing here is division, which never really had a lot of chemistry. And I said all along, every week on the show, pretty much, this feels like this faction is meant to be a bridge to get to an angle that doesn't involve them being together. And I said, I hope that the lack of chemistry actually is intentional. Now, it's possible there's a lack of chemistry, and it led to an acceleration of something they were going to do. And we also have to throw out there, Seth Rollins appeared to be legitimately hurt on his left shoulder at the PLE on Saturday. And so there's a chance, and I don't think word has officially come out, that he might need to take time off. If that's the case, maybe he can get through a quick match, losing to CM Punk. Who knows? There's all kinds of moving parts. We'll get into all of it. But the big issue is the faction that took forever to come up with a name, never got merch, I don't think, is now done. And now it seems like it's up to fans, unless they're steered otherwise, who to cheer for. I'm curious about that. Are fans going to want to cheer for Seth, who's delusionally full of himself, or the badass Braun Breaker, who they like to bark to, who's aligned with Paul Heyman, who's aligned with Brock Lesnar, who just beat up John Cena? It's a Paul Levesque style booking mess, but sometimes they cleaned it up. What do you think?
Yeah, I loved it. I thought that it was a shock, and yet looking back, the signs I think were there. Just as they're all and of course Seth proclaiming that he's on the mountaintop and no one can knock him off. Those seemed like famous last words, of course. But I do think that this whole the vision has not been great for Breaker, really. Seth saying he was more than he was 6 months ago, I didn't buy it. So we haven't heard what Breaker's explanation is yet, but it feels natural to me. So I thought it was a great moment in TV.
So what do you think the story is or telling? Is Seth? We're supposed to cheer for Seth? Or do you think that's not important, or they don't care? I'm wide open to suggestions here.
Yeah, the mind reels, doesn't it? They can't possibly turning Seth seems like a terrible idea, and yet what else can they do? I thought that he gave a fantastic babyface promo to open Raw, which I was really perplexed by. He seemed to be encouraging cheers, and even playing to the crowd when they told him when they were chanting to kiss Paul. He did it. So I think in retrospect, perhaps that's it makes a little more sense why he gave such a triumphant babyface promo. But where they go from here, I honestly don't know. It's exciting to think about, though.
If the goal is for Seth to be the babyface, and I would characterize this promo something different than a triumphant babyface promo. It had those elements, but it's sort of consistent with his heel character. Comes out to his music, soaks up the cheers before he then heels on the fans. It's part of the contradiction of Seth's character, what makes his character consistently sloppy. And then he said, well, I want to acknowledge the greatness that I have assembled. Yeah. Everything was about him. And it came across, I think, if you're Braun Breaker, patronizing. You are the undisputed future of the industry. And Breaker's like, well, maybe, but I kind of want to be now.
Mm-hmm.
And who is the greatest world champion of all time, and why is it me? So to me,
Sure.
I thought Seth was as obnoxious and self-centered as I had ever seen him, and I thought it was almost an insufferable heel promo, minus when he broke character and got playful, which I felt should be saved for some off-camera dark segment. And even then, if I'm a promoter or a booker, I'd go, don't do that stuff. We want a consistent presentation of the product. But we're going to get real for a minute, and I'm going to let the crowd tell me what to do, and they're going to tell me to break character, and then I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to have a little laugh moment with Braun Breaker that cracks up this badass who's never broken character before. Like, I don't watch wrestling to make friends or see people be friends and have fun moments. I want to see them tell me a consistent story where I have a sense of consistency to their character and a consistent emotional reaction. And so to me, that completely broke what to me was meant to be Seth being completely full of himself and wrapped up to a degree that made him insufferable. That led to Breaker later in the show spearing him. But I'm still left with this feeling that I don't know who is going to be supposedly be framed as a babyface or heel, because to me personally, I thought Seth was an insufferable heel in the opening segment and had it coming. And I think Braun Breaker fans want to cheer. And they were in Australia, so it's tough with Bronson Reed. But then Paul Heyman, it's just Paul Heyman. People cheered his name when Seth introduced him. They want to like him. But he's aligned with Brock Lesnar, who's this ultimate heel. To me, this is like the Paul Levesque, John Bollea. It's just a mix of all kinds of stuff. And I don't know how I don't know how I'm supposed to. I don't know how they want me to feel about it. And so we'll see. Maybe this all comes together again. But the fact that you saw it your way and I see it my way, I think is symptomatic, indicative of the fact that they don't have a clear, pun intended, vision for these characters right now. And they're just kind of winging it. And I think it's maybe more by design than I want to admit. I think they think ambiguity is great. Let everybody be ambivalent about wrestlers because it keeps people guessing, as opposed to passionately for Sami Zayn, passionately for Cody Rhodes, passionately against the Bloodline. For whatever reason, Paul Levesque thinks, no, that thing that gave us a boom period, we don't want that anymore. Let's just have everybody be a mix of things so nobody has strong emotional attachment or rooting for against their success. Any pushback on my thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was kind of confusing for sure. And I was wondering, what are they really going for in the opening segment? I did think that, and the crowd wasn't booing. The crowd was cheering like they were a face faction. Yep. I thought the point that stood out to me, where he intentionally, I didn't hear him go heel on the audience, but he did say, I proved I don't need anyone, which was partially true. I mean, he went out and won the match against Cody himself, and yet, it was obviously hypocritical, and the fans did push back on that one and chanted, I think, BS or something like that. But I agree with you. I wonder if they've booked themselves into a corner with all this.
And like to the point you just made, Seth Rollins knocked out Cody Rhodes with a watch, and we're to believe he says he did it himself. No, he didn't. He hit him with a metal object.
Yeah.
And that's not something you do if you're planning 2 days later to cut a babyface promo. Now, if they had to wing it because of an injury, so be it. Then we give them some grace. We give them a little leeway. But again, that doesn't mean that I'm going to give a total endorsement to how they handled that. But if this was accelerated, rushed, a panic move, whatever, if their hand was forced, then I we'll judge it through a different lens, but it doesn't mean complete forgiveness, because they did have some choices here to be made. But to me, this was, it's buzz generating. I'm really sick. Honestly, I'm really sick because I think it's counterproductive. On a personal level, I don't enjoy it, and I think it's counterproductive to business to have everything be, did people enjoy their like ice cream cone and junk food, so you get that sugar rush and then you crash afterwards. That's what this is, junk food booking. If it's all about, can we get social media numbers in? It's the only metric that makes people feel better an hour later, because you don't know how many tickets are going to sell. You don't know how what your next deal is 5 years down the line. The only thing that gives people in wrestling a buzz right now is, do we have big social media numbers, which I don't think is important. It's not nothing, but when you book for social media numbers, you're doing things in a very undisciplined, you're almost by definition doing things for the wrong reason. So let social media numbers be a side effect of disciplined, smart booking that has its eye on the long game. And so you see that a lot where they're like, oh, we did all these numbers. It's like, it's people scrolling through, and it plays for 2 seconds and they keep scrolling. Your numbers on Raw are down, not up on Netflix. You're not like, there's not tangible evidence that this is a game changer. So stop booking. So you get that ephemeral sugar rush of a big number. And that's kind of, if there's aspects of this that are consistent with that, but again, it's early. I mean, we'll see how it's the opening chapter. But I came out of this intrigued. We definitely have more to talk about than we would have. I didn't think the vision was working, but man, I do not know in 2 weeks if we're going to have a clear idea of who is worthy of rooting for. And there should be somebody we're rooting for and someone we're rooting against. And if Seth got kicked out of another faction, Mr. Freshman 92 in the chat says, this is the second time Seth's been turned on by a faction in a way that's meant to turn a babyface, which is the worst way to turn face. Because the Authority knocked it at a time when he needed babyface and momentum. The Authority kicked him out. And Steph and Triple H did it because they're McMahons. They need to be in control. They can't have anyone leave them. And it completely decimated Seth because he's like, well, fans, I'd still be with Stephanie and Hunter if they'd have me, but since they won't, will you take me? I mean, it was horrible and so obviously horrible, so obviously bad for business, so clearly counterproductive for Seth to have momentum as a babyface, but they did it anyway. And so I'm not saying this is that bad. This could be bad, and if it is bad, it could be bad for other reasons. But I don't see. Seth has a song people have been cheering for consistently. I do not see him as a character who's coming out of this angle as a babyface when he just said, I won on my own, but he used a watch and nobody decided to point that out. And he got turned on.
He does not smell like a real babyface. That's for sure. But they obviously, like, they can't, certainly we didn't just see Braun and Bronson turn babyface. They stabbed him in the back. So, but it's got to be one, unless he's going out on injury for a while, unless this is worse than we fear.
Right, exactly. DDM in the chat says during Seth's promo, I think nicknames aren't showing up and ats are showing up, by the way, in the chat for some reason. I don't know if that's happening. But during Seth's promo, Braun had a look of disconcertment for Seth and figured it would play out over time, much like The Rock, who was cocky and arrogant, manipulating the other members to kick out Farouk. I mean, Braun Breaker had body language that suggested, I'm getting sick of this guy. But I was sympathetic to Breaker. I was too. I mean, I thought Seth was patronizing and full of himself and delusional and as unlikable as I'd ever seen him, except when he broke character to josh around with Breaker in a way that made the rest of the promo before and after seem inauthentic.
So why do you think Perth cheered him? Like the whole way through?
Cheered Seth?
Yeah.
Because fans cheer Seth when he comes out and he has his big entrance and he's a star. And I mean, the thing is the WWE, and I talk about this all the time, WWE has conditioned, and pro wrestling has conditioned an audience to react to moments and stars, as opposed to because the announcing has undercut. I just had lunch with an ex-wrestler this afternoon, and we're just like, so it's fresh in my mind. We're just talking about the frustration about how the fan base now doesn't reward the fan wrestler reward system that drives good business is broken because fans think they want to be present for a moment as opposed to get immersed in a storyline. And I mean, I don't look at what Seth is doing and think there was anything admirable about that, but they're cheering him because he's a star in an opening segment on Raw, and they're celebrating WWE is in our city, and it's an honor to have the brand in our city, I guess. Okay. I mean, I think they were cheering Breaker and Heyman too. But I don't know. I mean, it's good for discussion. We got people on hold, and let's keep the conversation going. Let's pause and introduce ourselves here. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Monday, October 13th, 2025. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, the editor, publisher, and founder of PWTorch, a long-running paper copy newsletter that predates the internet. The website, PWTorch.com, which definitely doesn't predate the internet. That'd be weird. And a host of various podcasts, including the Wade Keller Post Shows following Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. And also the flagship on Tuesdays on our podcast feed. Search Wade Keller in your podcast app to subscribe to all of our shows. If you search Wade Keller and then you search PWTorch, you'll get all of our free shows. Our post show is the red logo show. The blue logo show is audio only. It's never on YouTube, and you need to subscribe to get it. That includes our pay-per-view previews, our weekly flagship interviews, and best of content. And if you search PWTorch, that'll bring up the PWTorch Daily Cast, which includes the Acknowledging WWE weekly show, along with the PWTorch 90s Pastcast, Wrestling Night in America, PWT Talks NXT, All Elite Conversation Club, and more. Hope that you are making some of those shows at least appointment listening on your podcast schedule. A great mix of hosts doing great work, contributing their perspective on specific topics in wrestling. But we're here to talk Raw at a weird time. We started at 6:30 Eastern because Raw started at a weird time, early AM hours on Monday because they were in Australia. I think, Paul, that Australians should have just had to stay up really late so it could air at a regular time, or get up really early. Why are we accommodating them?
Oh my goodness, I agreed, and good luck staying away from spoilers if you weren't able to, didn't feel like watching.
Oh, I know, yeah.
At 8 a.m. Yeah,
I did avoid spoilers. I didn't watch live, and I watched on delay, and I did avoid spoilers. So I'm
that's great.
Happy
Even
with that.
Scrolling Facebook, just looking at what my friends are up to, there I get a spoiler come up. So
yes,
it really is hard to duck it these days.
Yeah, you said you were on Facebook, so we know you're over 30 years old.
That's for sure.
Paul Weigle, pronounce your name for me again. Last name.
Sure. Weigle.
You know, Dan Keister and Keister took me like 3 years. So, Paul Weigle, good to have you back on the program. PWTorch contributor, longtime PWTorch VIP member. Good to have you here. Talk to people about what you contribute to the site.
Sure. So I contribute the weekly WWE Rising Stars and Fading Stars column, and I let you know who I see is performing well in their roles and who is not, who is being well served by bookers, and who is not, and who has a new opportunity and review what their prospects are.
Excellent. All right, we are live, and if you're watching us live, that means you can chat with us. So join us in the chat room because we're at an earlier than normal time. Maybe we'll see some fresh names show up. I know we didn't have a lot of time to advertise we'd be on at this time. But if you did that's all the more reason, everybody on YouTube, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, set the alerts button so you get alerted when we go live in case we there might be a time we go live with breaking news coverage of something, and you'll be alerted to it if you click the alarm button on YouTube. But you can also email us, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. And you can also join us as a caller. The link is in my TV report covering Raw tonight. Hope you all have read my TV report. I had a lot to say about each of the key segments and matches, and it gives you a little primer to kind of what my point of view is going to be, and maybe that can drive some of the conversation during the program as a caller, emailer, or in the chat. PWTorch.com for everybody. PWTorchVIP.com for the ad-free version for our VIP members. Let's start our caller portion here, Paul, with Jason D. I want to get to the chat's had a lot to say about this, and I definitely want to incorporate your comments, but I don't want to leave Jason waiting too long. It's probably, I don't even, what time is it for you, Jason, right now in Australia?
6:30 in the morning, roughly. No, it's 7 o'clock now.
So have you been up this whole time riding a wave of adrenaline, or did you just wake up?
I normally get up pretty early anyway. So then I saw, I was going to call in like straight away coming out of the arena because the energy was amazing. But then I noted the different start time. But I get up early anyway, so it's beautiful right now. Like, it's amazing weather here. So no issue for me. I'm not going to complain about any different start times. You see the difference between me and you here? There's no complaining. I just get on with it and deal with it.
How do you possibly put up with it, Jason?
Fire away, Wade.
Well, I just want to. Paul and I have been talking about the breakup of the Vision. I put my thoughts out there. Paul pushed back a little bit, or has a different perspective on certain things. Feel free to just react to that. What did you think of the turn? And what do you think? What do you think the story is they're at least trying to tell us?
Well, I'll tell you the energy coming out of the arena. So when that happened, and I hope that came across on the air, there was a massive pop in the arena when Braun Breaker speared Seth Rollins, and there was like a palpable buzz in the air after the show went off the air, because a little bit happened after, because it cut off with Paul Heyman raising the hands of Seth and raising the hands of Braun and Bronson, right? Yeah. And then after CM Punk came back in the ring with a chair, then he kind of looked at Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker and Paul Heyman, also looked over to Seth, and he was just in the ring with the chair, and that's where not too much happened after that. But a lot of officials came out too. And it looked like that Michael Cole and Wade Barrett were talking as well live on air, but actually weren't on air. So I'm not sure if they're going to do like a follow-up to that, but it was a big angle, right?
Interesting.
But yeah, I can tell you, after the show like clearly went off the air, there was a buzz in the arena. And then as everyone's walking out, we're all going, oof, oof, oof. So everyone's barking. Everyone loved it. And even when we got onto the street, people are barking. So random people who are like, what the hell's going on with this wrestling? Why are people barking? It would have been hilarious. But yeah, just amazing energy when that happened. So listening to what you guys are saying, look, for me, I think it's consistent with Brian Breaker's character first, because he's always struck me as sort of like a thinking man's badass. And he's a pit bull, right?
Yeah.
He's a pit bull. So he's going to strike at any time. But we've seen in segments where he's asking questions of Paul as, why is this happening? Why are we doing this? Just remind me again of where we're heading with this. I mean, I remember one time in a segment, he was sitting down and he was questioning, he beat Penta, but there was interference. And he was kind of saying, are people going to think that I wasn't able to beat Penta by myself? And it might have been another opponent, but he's always thinking. So he's a wild dog, but he's a thinking wild dog. So for him to strike a Seth Rollins like this is consistent with his character. And Bronson Reed is kind of the opportunist. So he's in a position, he's obviously worked hard to get to this position after starts, even in kayfabe mode. So for him to see this opportunity, he's going to side with Brian Breaker. In relation to Seth Rollins, I didn't think it was a babyface promo. Clearly, the crowd were booing the content of what he was saying, and it's just a stupid song that gets muddled with things, and then his catchphrase. But the crowd were against him. And when he was asking Brian Breaker to do that little tick and all the rest of it, that's clearly him trying to suck up to Brian. Like, he's taking credit for seeing the potential in him, and that I brought you along and I saw something in you. And then he's trying to suck up to him as well. So Seth Rollins, to me, is clearly unlikable in this situation. And they're going to have to do a massive redemption arc for him if he's ever going to turn babyface. But this wasn't a babyface promo. This was him clearly taking credit for everything and then trying to suck up to the people in the ring just to keep him on his good side. So clearly a heel promo for me.
Paul had brought up the crowd was popping and cheering for certain things Seth was doing and everyone in the ring was doing. Characterize that. What was it like in the building, and why do you think that was going on? And is it different than what you typically think you experience watching stars on TV in general week to week?
Listen, that's just the crowd being a part of it. So we're no different to a lot of these other crowds. It's almost like we go back and forth. It's almost like the crowds are playing a bit like Bailey, to be honest with you. We're all Bailey in a sense, you don't know what's going on with your reactions. We're kind of like, you're cheering some sections, you're booing the other. The content of what Seth was saying was getting booed. If you remove the song and you remove his catchphrases, there's going to be no cheering. They're going to be booing. Now, clearly they're like kiss, kiss, kiss with him and Heyman and, cheering all that, because there is the acknowledgement that they're big stars and we are happy to see these big stars. But ultimately, I think the key thing is that when he was talking about he never needed anyone, he did it all by himself, which is the key argument here. And that's the key point of this angle. The crowd were booing him. So he was getting the necessary heel heat that was required, I think, for this angle. And then, as you talked about, Wade, you could clearly see Brian Breaker was getting fed up with this. And it is consistent with his character that they've been portraying, that he would just snap. Like, he's had enough, and now he snaps. He's not going to wait. He's just going to snap. Because
Reed's been the guy all along who's been holding Braun Breaker back from charging to the ring. He's the hothead who, like you characterize, Jason, as snapping and being somebody who will just impulsively react. I'm curious how they frame this, because I wrote in my Raw report as I was watching Raw, not knowing the ending, that in the segment of the first hour, Braun Breaker, I said, I don't know if I should trust Braun Breaker's acting yet, but to me, he comes across as someone who's had enough of Seth and finds him insufferable and is ready to snap. I mean, in so many words, I said that. But part of me was like, maybe Breaker just finds Seth insufferable in real life and he doesn't think anyone's looking at him and it's leaking out. I mean, who knows? I'm shoulder shrug. I don't know. But I do think now we can say with reasoned confidence that Breaker's acting there was nuanced and worthy of studying, which, by the way, was the case with the Bloodline. Usually when Paul Heyman's involved in something, there's a lot of thought put into that kind of thing. So I applaud Braun for giving off signs of kind of, I'll be a good soldier, but this guy does not share my vibe. He would not be my friend. And boy, he can't stop talking about himself and how much he is a gift to me. And frankly, I don't feel that way. I'm a Steiner. I'm a badass. And I can't wait till I have the freedom to punch this guy in the face. I mean, that's what his body language has felt like it has been suppressing to 95, 90, 85% success, depending on the week. But it was always leaking through. So to me, that's good. That's a foundational when Breaker explains himself, there is that in the background. And I don't know that they should reference it. I don't think you should do a special video showing Breaker seeming disgusted with him. But I think people had a vibe all along. And the question was it intentional or a side effect of bad chemistry just as performers to lay the groundwork for this moment? Now, Sean Ross Sapp is saying that they think Seth is legitimately injured. I mean, I think Seth is legitimately injured. He's wearing a sling.
Yes.
But guess what? He recently faked an injury, but that served a purpose. This doesn't seem like it would. The question now is if it's like if he needs surgery or it's a tendon tear or something like that, then he's going to be out a long time. Does he have it in him? And probably not, to lose the title to Punk in a match. And if so, even if it's very limited, is there some way that you can transfer the title without having it be held up or, just kind of break the lineage, which would kind of suck if that has to happen? Because do we want to see heel Braun Breaker against babyface CM Punk when Breaker just turned on a guy like Seth who people don't like, and it doesn't really make him a heel or a babyface, just makes him a badass with a temper who didn't like someone talking down to him? I don't think that's great for WWE, but sometimes you got to call audibles. Jason, what do you think is there's an array of moves, but if Seth can't go or he can go in a limited way before getting surgery, kind of what do you want to see happen?
I don't know, because with Seth, right, he took the spear and he took the tsunami, but is that enough damage to keep him out? Like, are they going to acknowledge that he actually got injured in this match? And then why didn't he acknowledge that? And would he have kept going? And if not,
they could say he got hurt on the spear.
Yeah, but then again, it's like, CM Punk was just like in a bit of a battle with Jey Uso and LA Knight, and he took a spear and he also took a tsunami, but he's going to be good to go. So it's almost like sometimes, one tsunami will take out someone for a while, and then, LA Knight took 3 of them, and then he's back next week. So, it's like it all depends. It's like the impact of these moves, and we know this in wrestling, it's never consistent. So to me, for Seth Rollins to be out for an extended period of time, he'd have to take even more punishment unless they acknowledge that he was already sore coming out of that match, and this just further compounded it. So I'm not really sure where they go with that, because Braun Breaker did just snatch the title away from him as if to say, this is mine. So are they going to go ahead and, make it that it's, it's up for grabs? I'm going to wait and see how this plays out.
Paul, what do you think?
It really does depend on how badly, of course, Seth is hurt. But like Jason said, he did take 2 big moves. So I could see a poetic justice scenario where he's to wrestle a match with CM Punk and the Vision trashes him before the match. And then Punk picks up an easy win to get revenge for what Seth did to him at SummerSlam.
Jason, do you want to keep talking? Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, the other point I wanted to raise is, and I remember I raised this at the time, again, it actually works out good that Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman didn't have that natural on-screen chemistry that Paul clearly has with Braun Breaker and has with Bronson Reed. So let's not forget, like, Bronson Reed is really, he's come up here. Like, he is in a very strong position now. There's clearly chemistry between Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. They look like a couple of badasses out there. And Paul Heyman has done wonders for Bronson Reed associating with him. But the lack of chemistry with Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins has actually worked here, because Paul's not really heartbroken about what's happened to Seth. This was always a transactional relationship between 2 people who shared a vision, but it was never personal. So with Paul Heyman, with Punk and Roman Reigns, it was personal and there was heartbreak there. With Seth Rollins, this was a business transactional relationship. We share a same vision, and we're going to get there together. But Paul didn't hesitate. He saw Seth on the floor. He said, all right, I'm with Bryan and Bronson now. And even Paul Heyman talked about that if Seth Rollins couldn't defeat Cody Rhodes, he was prepared to leave him. So there was never this personal touch here. So the lack of natural on-screen chemistry, to me, that actually played a good part in this. Like, it didn't go against what ultimately happened.
It was kind of a happy accident. The downside is Heyman said, if you lose, we will abandon you. And then he won, and they abandoned him. And so what is the explanation for that? And Seth was so over the top, so full of himself, so full of telling everybody, in that group, I am a gift to you, but, let me pat you on the head and say, you're good soldiers for me. And someday you might have, and he was so over the top too. Like, this is the greatest moment of my life and it's only going to get better. I mean, you can't forecast a fall more than that. So, and I'm not being critical of it. I think that's laying the groundwork for it to be satisfying. But that's where I come across as thinking Seth's the heel here and Breaker got sick of him, and you can't just discard Seth entirely. He's got to come back at some point with a character. And if someone gets hurt and they're out for a long time, you can do the comeback videos, the training, and you can kind of go, I learned my lesson, whatever. I mean, they can reshape him. But if it's a short-term injury, it's harder to suddenly believe he's a different person. So it's inconvenient in a number of ways, but Seth won, and then what was going to happen if he lost happened anyway. I don't know how they fit that into the storyline unless the idea is Braun Breaker has a breakout moment as a performer in a backstage segment with Heyman and Bronson Reed, and he just goes, do you guys know how hard it was to stand there and listen to Seth talk about himself incessantly? He was out there for 14 minutes at the top of Raw, and I know he just had a big win. I get it. But it was hard to stand there and listen to him talk. I felt this way sometimes. I want to hit 1.5 speed when I listen to Seth on his promos because he turns an 8-minute promo to 14 minutes needlessly. So I think there's things Bronson can say, but the problem is that's not a heel promo because Seth was obnoxious and insufferable and self-centered. So it is a happy accident they didn't have chemistry, but it's not a happy accident if they had to rush this before they got to flesh out the full story. And ultimately, I just don't. I'm open to people telling me how they think the majority of fans will feel or how WWE can steer this, but I don't think we have sympathetic people on either side to play the babyface role. If Seth's going to be gone for a long time, and you can do something to make Braun Breaker a true heel for doing something that I think fans enjoyed seeing happen. They weren't just shocked by it. I think they liked it. Otherwise, it's going to undercut CM Punk. Like who wants to wrestle Dom right now? He's trying to be heel and people are still cheering him. He's doing the things heel should do to stop people from cheering him. And it's still happening. People are going to be cheering Braun Breaker because he's speared that insufferable, arrogant guy who has a cool ring entrance we like to sing to, but then we boo him once he, does his shtick most of the time. I don't know. Jason, any follow-up on that? Otherwise, we can talk about other aspects of the show.
Well, I guess Brian would say that it was insufferable, but that Seth was saying that he didn't need, Braun Breaker or Bronson Reed. Well, Braun Breaker could easily say, well, we never needed him. Like, that's his comeback.
Well, right. Does that make him a heel or a face or neither?
Well, right now he's a bit of a baby face, right? But as you've talked about, it kind of all depends on who you're facing at the time. Sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, because he's so cool, Braun Breaker, with the spear and that energy that he brings, that vibe that he has. You're right. If he was to face CM Punk, I think the fans would be chanting for CM Punk, right? It's like on a case-by-case scenario. Who you're going to be booed and who you're going to be cheered against. And I know you're not a big fan of that. It does make it intriguing, though. So I'm just going to wait and see how this plays out, because if they're up against, look at Bronson Reed, right? Bronson Reed was getting cheered by the Australian crowd last night, but at Crown Jewel, they were clearly for Roman Reigns, right? So it's almost on a case-by-case basis, and that's with the majority of the crowds.
By the way, as a quick sidebar, and then I want to get back to this for a second, was a crowd more into CM Punk at Raw than they were otherwise, and were they more into him than anybody else?
You know what? It was Cena, Reigns, and Punk, but Punk got a massive reaction.
And Jason, let me insert real quick. It seemed like Punk was getting cheered when it wasn't about him, and that stands out to me more than someone just getting a pop for coming out like Rhea Ripley. Oh, yeah. Like they're just chanting CM Punk when Cody's in there, like chanting CM Punk when Seth's in there, like out of nowhere without prompting.
Well, I think because there's an aspect where Punk was meant to be here last year for the Elimination Chamber, but he got injured. And I think the other thing is that, Australian fans just, obviously we hardly ever get to see the WWE wrestlers over here. But there's also the aspect that for a lot of us, we never thought we'd ever see CM Punk again after everything that happened. So
there was a woman there was a sign. She was holding a sign. She was crying, holding a sign that's saying she waited 19 years to see Punk.
And then I saw on social media, Punk had an actual photo with her, and you could tell that he was blown away by the reaction. Like he actually went out of his way to go on Instagram, and I just saw it earlier. Like thank Perth, thank Australia. So you could tell, right? the fans were so happy to see him.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it just wasn't him. It was John Cena. So I think but yeah, he got a massive, but, you know, as did LA Knight and as did Jey Uso. But CM Punk's reaction for me stands out over the weekend, with the exception of, say, John Cena.
What about Rhea Ripley?
Rhea Ripley, of course, got a massive reaction. You know what I mean?
Where is she compared to Cena and Punk, though, is kind of what I'm curious about.
That's a tough one. I mean, like, everyone, Rhea Ripley, a hometown girl, like, you know, she's home country girl, and you know, amazing, one of the top wrestlers. You know, people recognize that, but there wasn't any. This is hard. There's going to be different. Look, people will say different things depending on who you talk to is at the arena. But for me, CM Punk, like the energy for him last night, it was like a different type of energy. Like, we're so happy to see you. We never thought we would see you again. And, you know, there was a real, like, and plus with his song, you've got the right song. You got 3 syllables to chant as well. It all plays into it, but the energy for Punk was amazing. I'll tell you what, though, as far as the most heat was concerned, give it up for Asuka, because when she slapped Kairi Sane on that, the crowd booed the hell out of that. Now, that led to a very not so likable chant for Asuka, and it wasn't the wanker one either, which we don't have to get into.
Oh, no. What's the first letter?
You can see me.
Yeah.
First letters are C, but I got to be honest.
I was wondering why that didn't come out yet. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we're a bit loose with that term over here in Australia. We're a bit more, pardon the pun, we're a bit more liberal with that word than what other people in different countries. But in any event, Asuka got a lot of heat. And
by the way, Brian Cox in Succession always said, "You people need to say that word more here in the United States. It's very satisfying."
Listen, while we're on that subject, like, listen, mates over here, we'll call each other that word, and it'll be like it's nothing. You know, I was like, hey, okay, we'll just leave it at that, all right? But in any event, Asuka is getting the right kind of heat. She was getting booed, so she got a lot of heat. A lot of heat last night, which is good. We need to see a female wrestler getting legitimate heel heat. Someone who's extremely talented in the ring, who's playing this bully character that nobody likes. It's good to see. We need to see more female wrestlers generating this type of heat.
I want to bring up that Seth is in all likelihood injured. I mean, he certainly, you know, it was very convincing selling after the coast to coast, and I think it was the coast to coast where he landed on his shoulder awkwardly. So, and then he was selling, or I don't know, selling is the right word, holding it, favoring it the rest of the match. This kind of goes to, there's wrestlers who are shocked that as they get up in age, needlessly dangerous high spots are shortening their careers and interrupting important storylines. Will Ospreay stood in the ring in his early 30s going, well, I'm shocked. I'm not recovering like I did when I was 25. Well, right. Like, that's what we keep telling you. That's what every veteran tells you. That's what a bunch of people are saying on the outside, going, you don't need to do 47 dangerous spots in one match. You can do 4 or 8 and make them count. And by definition, your odds of getting hurt go down 80 to 90%. Your career will be extended. Kenny Omega. Oh, no, those moves look more dangerous than they are. You still want to stick with that? Because you should have 10 more years in you like AJ Styles does, or did, but you don't. And it's costing AEW and your fans opportunities to see you. When will these 6 and 7 star match merchants smarten up and stop giving extra stars to people who do extra high spots that end up not having impact, numbing people to the moves, and shortening careers and causing wrestlers to need surgery? Did Seth, at the stage he's at, with the big storyline that he's involved in, really need to do a coast-to-coast? What are you trying to prove? This goes back to his days in NXT training, when he argued with agents, producers, going, I got to get my spots in. And they'd go, why? That's not our story. Your story isn't to get your spots in. Your story is your spots contribute to a story. Matches aren't there for you to get your spots in. That's been his attitude and his approach all along. You would think, as a guy who's pushed back against Will Ospreay, saying, look at my paychecks, as some sort of rationalization for being better or something, would be smart enough to go, well, maybe the way you earn paychecks is by staying healthy, by not doing needlessly dangerous spots, so that you can create some sort of ephemeral sugar rush buzz online for having done something cool that isn't safe. So it's just the bodies are just stacked up right now. And I'm sorry, the 6 and 7 star match merchants should be introspective right now about whether they were wrong all along to heap praise on people for high density, high spots without a payoff that you thought was amazing because they're giving to the sport, or nobody ever thought of doing way more high spots that are more dangerous than anyone needed to do. Maybe people thought of it and they were just smart enough not to do it. So I guess I just think Paul Levesque and WWE and the fans and Paul Heyman would rather have a healthy Seth Rollins. Maybe not Braun Breaker. Maybe not in real life. Maybe he just finds Seth insufferable. I don't know. He's very believable when he looks at Seth with disgust. I have no idea.
You seem to empathize with him in that way.
I am frustrated with Seth right now because I want him. I mean, I would change a lot about what he does. I think his instincts are bad, but he's immensely talented, and I want him around. And I want him healthy, and I want him having good wrestling matches. But I don't. When you're missing ring time and having surgeries because you don't have the discipline to understand that 27 pieces of pizza at one sitting isn't better than 5. It isn't. And I mean, it's time for people to grow up. and I mean, the wrestlers and the fans and the critics and the star rating merchants, stop rewarding with praise because you're part of the problem. When clearly wrestlers are doing way more high spots than anyone has time to sell for in a match. And people just get numb. The fans get numb to them. And it's unfair to everybody else in this industry who's trying to tell stories in the ring. When you're no-selling 17 big spots and spamming finishers, you're hurting the industry because now everyone then fans look at other matches where there's a discipline and a pace and to it and every move counts. And they're kind of like, well, this isn't me opening my mouth and having M&Ms drop in them nonstop. I actually have to savor what's happening here. People lose their discipline when people are as undisciplined as some of these high spot spammers and star rating merchants. So anyway, there's my little speech. By the way, I was just talking to the wrestler today over lunch at Mall of America. This is not just on the wrestlers. The wrestlers are a result of the culture that they were trained in. Some overcome it, are smarter, understand the history, link up with the right veterans who catch their ear and talk them and steer them in a better direction. And others aren't. But it's a cultural problem in wrestling that starts at the very top. It should be Vince McMahon 25 years ago had meetings and said, here's a Triple H match and a Shawn Michaels match. Everybody watch because they think about what they do and everything they do counts. And their wrestlers were rolling their eyes. They were just in the back. And I reported on all this. This is all the good stuff in the back issues of the PWTorch newsletter. If people want to read about what was going on behind the scenes in the 90s and the 2000s. And wrestlers couldn't stand it because Michael, Shawn, and Hunter were not super popular in a lot of circles, but Vince did it. So I won't even relitigate who was right and who was wrong and whether it should be done and who was a teacher's pet and all that. But there was something to be said for having videotape sessions and having a leader saying, here's the culture of our presentation. Here's the rules of engagement. Here's the parameters we want to wrestle in. And this applies to AEW too. This isn't just beating up on WWE. And we want there to be a reason for everything we do, and not everybody should be in it for themselves. Every wrestler shouldn't be trying to outdo the other wrestler, which, by the way, sounds shocking to probably most people listening to this, and certainly most fans buying tickets chanting "Fight Forever." To me, you should want someone to win. You shouldn't just want two people to fight forever. It's just a silly chant. I get the spirit of it, but it's not the immersion. It's not the peak experience of a wrestling show. It's cheering for Sami Zayn to upset Gunther. That's peak experience. Cody to finish his journey. So promoters should be seeking that peak experience for fans by regularly, from the top down, telling their producers, agents, veteran wrestlers, young wrestlers, their announcers, here's the story we're trying to tell, and here's the discipline we're trying to do it. And the side effect is we're going to have healthier wrestlers who are available and not injured all the time. So it's not, I'm picking on the wrestlers because they're front and center, and frankly, they should know better, but it is a result of the culture, and in ways, and I said it over lunch today, I start with the promoter at the top when I blame anybody in the booker more than the wrestlers who end up taking some of the heat from me.
So do you think that that some wrestlers feel pressured to take risky spots by management, or do you think it's just not management reining them in? Yeah, so the wrestler I was talking to today, and we had a similar question. I'm glad you brought that up. He said wrestlers are worried that if they're not getting a response, that the booker will hear someone else getting a response and push them instead. And my comeback was the booker and promoter should make it really clear to wrestlers, I want to assure you, you will not be rewarded by me with more of a push, more wins, more titles, more higher spot on the card, just because you're getting a crowd response. I will evaluate whether the crowd response you're getting is counterproductive to the larger show and the stories we're telling and the culture of the presentation that we're trying to instill on you. If you get a pop and a big response for doing what we have set out for you to do, you will be rewarded. If you are doing selfish things like spamming high spots, doing a coast-to-coast needlessly when we're leaning on you to be a top star in a major storyline and a story arc that's going to last all the way through WrestleMania and beyond, you will not get rewarded.
But when Seth Rollins gets to turn heel and still have a babyface song experience for the crowd, you're sending a message from the top down that it's not about a consistent presentation of your character, and thus transferring that to a match where people are chanting for you to lose as a heel, not chanting, "This is awesome, fight forever, one more time," all these nonsense chants that are result in fans aren't to blame. This is the product they grew up on, and it's the announcers reinforce it constantly, and I've been critical of them consistently for decades for doing it, and I haven't stopped just because it's become the norm, even though people go, well, that's the way it is, and well, I'm not going to stop saying it's wrong. So in the end, the wrestlers need to believe that message needs to be given, and the wrestlers need to believe it. But that's, Paul, why wrestlers do it is, and this is somebody who's around them, is their whole goal is to go into business for themselves, so the people in the back who aren't watching the show hear a crowd response and they go, oh, that must have worked. Because there's a bunch of people in the back who are part of putting the show together who aren't actually watching it. They're hearing about it. They're hearing the crowd response through the walls, through the curtains. So that just needs to change. And WWE doesn't have to do anything because they have all this money guaranteed coming in for years. And I think that's a dangerous thing, to not have accountability, or to have the only accountability being how are our social media numbers when you wake up in the morning, which is just an ephemeral, nonsense, meaningless number relative to all the other things that matter more.
Wade, my question to this is, I always wondered about star ratings in matches, because I always thought a booker's job was to put a card together. It's like you can't have every match be like a 5-star match. The whole point is to sort of like build a card, and ups and downs. And some matches are going to come down, some matches are going to go up, and the whole point is to sort of leave the fans happy. So I've never like rated matches. To me, I either liked a show or I didn't, and every match played its own part in it.
Yeah.
Like when you watch a movie, not every part of the movie is high action. Like you're going to come down in a movie. So I never understood that.
Yep.
And getting back to Seth Rollins, if you go back to last year's WrestleMania, there's a reason why The Rock called Seth Rollins the MVP of WrestleMania last year. And it wasn't because of what Seth did in the ring. It was the story that he told with being Cody Rhodes' shield. And I think we all agree, when Seth Rollins is serious and cuts those money promos where he's referencing things that happened in the past and what might happen in the future, and he has that conviction in the eyes and what he believes, what he says, that's money Seth Rollins, not the cackling, laughing one, but when he's dead serious. And that's what really got him over for me, when he's cutting those serious promos and the story that he's telling, which he doesn't have to take all these high risks to tell that story. He's a better storyteller than what I think he might even give himself credit for, just with his eyes and the way he speaks with conviction. So you're right, it was completely unnecessary for him to do that, but maybe he felt like he had to do something like that, and Cody did. Even with the top rope crossroads that didn't lead to a 3 count, based on what John Cena and AJ Styles did. Like, did they feel like they have to outdo what happened there? And did someone say to him, no, you don't have to do that. This is a story we're telling.
Paul.
Good point.
Yeah.
And I'm interested because you mentioned that Seth can be so compelling, and yet he can be so grating as well. And Wade, I get the impression that your sense is that the Vision was kind of a failed project, where to me, I thought it really worked for Seth. I thought this is the most interesting Seth has been in a long time. It aligned the way that I want to feel about him with how the storyline presents him. I thought that the Vision was successful. So I'm interested, Jason, in your perspective on Seth Rollins in the Vision.
Real quick, Paul, before I throw it to you, define success for you. Successful. What does that mean? Because we need to agree on the term.
Yeah, good point. All right.
Yeah.
So it made dramatic television. It aroused emotions. It seemed important and exciting, and I think it made other things around it happen. It led to the rise of LA Knight on Raw and other side effects. So that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, good. Jason.
Well, I don't disagree with what Paul's saying. I guess it's because we all saw the vision of the Vision, I guess, was to get ultimately Braun Breaker to that next stage. That so if that ends up doing that, even if it's by they got there quicker than what we thought, then it has been a success. I mean, I don't really like Seth in this role. Like, to me, like I said, I prefer Seth. I love serious talking Seth. That's what I liked. And, I'd like to see more of that. But look, and again, to back up Paul's point, look at what it's done for Bronson Reed now. I mean, Bronson Reed has really stepped up. And if you look at, he got the victory over Roman Reigns. And I think the stat is he's only the second person in the past 5 years to get a singles victory against Roman Reigns. The other one being Cody Rhodes. So Bronson Reed has really stepped up. A great combination with Braun Breaker. So if these are now two breakout stars because of this vision, even if Seth Rollins and, the on-screen chemistry of Paul Heyman, and people might be tired of Seth in this heel role or whatever, it's gotten Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker to another level. So I guess we can call it a success.
What did the vision do? And this is it's not a loaded question. What did the vision do that made it more possible for Bronson Reed to break out than if Seth were not part of the group, but there was a faction otherwise with those three and perhaps one or two others? Was there something about Seth's presence and Reed looking like I don't mean to answer my own question. It's just throwing it out there for a discussion. Just being in a group that included the world champion Seth Rollins, the secondary world champion, but still, and a guy who's had all the main events and the star power and the big ring entrance and all that, did just kind of sharing a ring with him when people are expecting him to be the guy with his arms crossed in the background, Big Bubba Rogers or whatever, pick your bodyguard kind of in the background type role. Wardlow with MJF at the beginning. Was that just being in that mix needed Seth for Reed to feel like he was in a major group and not a secondary Paul Heyman group? Or because you could argue they were trying with Reed for a while. They believed in him and they kept trying with different things because they saw it in him. So this isn't sort of a manifestation of something unexpected. It's just the manifestation of something that they had struggled to give space to manifest. Jason, you first on that. Yeah.
Well, I guess the more I think about it, I don't think aligning Reed with Seth was as powerful as aligning him with Paul Heyman, but also sharing the screen with Braun Breaker, because everyone sees that Braun Breaker is the future, obviously big star, but Bronson Reed has more than held up his end of the bargain. And then it's like you see him and Braun Breaker together, and all of a sudden people are like, geez, Bronson Reed, he's a bit of a badass too, he's causing damage and playing off Braun. He's almost Braun Breaker's equal here in his own way. And then you got Paul Heyman and what they did with the whole tribal thief thing. I think it has more to do with, now that I'm thinking about it and playing it out, the visual of seeing him with Paul Heyman and Braun Breaker together, these two badasses that could wipe through everyone. That's probably done more for Bronson Reed than, say, aligning himself with Seth. Although it should be said from a story point of view, for Seth wanting Bronson Reed by his side after the damage that Bronson Reed did to Seth, that also plays along into, well, Seth is a main eventer in a lot of, WWE's fans' eyes. So if he thinks Bronson Reed's worth having by his side, then he must be important too. So
I'm glad you added that point at the end, because there was nothing in Seth's favor until then in terms of him adding to this. Yeah. And unwittingly, I might have asked a loaded question, maybe subconsciously, when I said, was Seth really necessary for Paul's point that the vision has been successful to be successful? Because to me, Seth's music, him not giving up the music selfishly. I think John Cena has been selfish in a different way this year. Regardless of the note he passed for a gracious AJ Styles ring introduction, doesn't undo all my other criticism. It can exist independently as a gracious move for somebody who I didn't think was very gracious to Cody at all. But the fact that Seth said, I'm willing to look past this, and like when I say unwittingly is a loaded question, I don't think that there wasn't a benefit to Seth being there. I think it was, but I think too, it needs to be balanced against the needless negatives and the unavoidable, I think, obvious lack of chemistry that Paul Heyman and Seth had. Paul Heyman is a leader, and it took months, however long the Vision's been together, for Seth to seem like he even knew Paul Heyman was in the ring with him. And I just felt like Seth all along was in a way that was sort of more meta than character-based, kind of self-centered, self-absorbed, worried about getting his own stuff in on promos in addition to how he wrestles. And I swear, it just like, it's me connecting dots, not hearing from people when I say this. I feel like that's why I didn't trust whether Braun Breaker was getting fed up with Seth as a character, because part of me just felt like Heyman and Seth and Reed are in a text group that Seth isn't part of, and all they do is bash Seth. Like, I could imagine that being consistent with what I see on screen in real life, IRL. So and Heyman's not going to show his hand as much because he's a professional. He's not going to, like, he doesn't want political trouble. But I could imagine Breaker just being like, I got to look like I like what this guy's saying to me and I care about his compliments. But my God, could he stop talking about himself? And so to me, they never had chemistry. And it made me think maybe they're self-aware of it and this is just a short-term bridge elsewhere. And I kept saying that as like my out. Maybe it's not meant to have chemistry. But I just didn't think Seth ever looked like he belonged with that group, and they didn't belong with him. But that's not to say Paul isn't right, and you're not right in your last point, Jason, that ultimately a greater good was served. But I don't think it was a successful faction in seeming like a cohesive, effective faction storyline-wise. But I think in a meta sense, it produced some positives that we're now reaping the benefits of.
But to give them credit, I believe they told this story effectively, because the reason why Paul sided with Seth, it wasn't because they had the chemistry, it's because Paul was heartbroken by what happened with Roman Reigns and CM Punk. So he went with someone who basically, remember the promo that Seth Rollins cut in the ring with Paul Heyman, and he laid out why Paul should leave Roman Reigns and CM Punk, that they were effectively not really caring about his feelings. So Heyman sided with Seth Rollins because Seth was prepared to tell him the truth about things. And Heyman wasn't having his heart being persuaded by Seth. So this purely was a business transactional relationship, because Heyman's all about the vision and the future of the company, which is why he aligned himself with Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed. And Seth was along for the ride because he also believes that he has a vision for the company, because he kept talking about, I can't have CM Punk win the championship and Roman Reigns because these are two selfish people. So Heyman and Seth, in their own ways, have visions for where they believe the industry should go, and they align themselves temporarily, but ultimately it came apart because you've got this unpredictable badass in Bron Breakker who's thinking for himself, saying, I'm not going to wait my turn. And then you got Bronson Reed who wants to come along for the ride too, and he's going to jump on whichever bandwagon best serves him. So I can make sense. I can actually connect the dots and make sense of the story they're telling, and maybe give them a little bit more credit for this, because I believe the breadcrumbs were there all along.
Do you think, Jason, they would have rather had genuine chemistry? Or do you think they even leaned into amplifying the lack of chemistry? And there were times when Paul in the back goes to Seth, hey, you say this. And Seth said, no, that'll look like we get along and we have a vibe in common. Let's not do that. We want a constant sense of Seth in his own world and Heyman and his two people are in the other. Like, do you think it was by design or more of a happy accident?
Listen, I know what you're saying. Whether it's by design or a happy accident, I'm not really concerned about that. I'm only concerned about how it plays out, and as if it makes sense. If they've told the story to get to this point, and I never had a problem. Listen, the DX needed chemistry. Evolution needed chemistry. The Four Horsemen, you need chemistry. This was always transactional. This is a business relationship between Paul Heyman and Seth Rollins. And it's almost like they tried to force it, but it wasn't working. And that, for me, at least personally, made for an interesting dynamic. Don't force something if it's not there. And if it's not there, let's play into it and tell a story with that. So I never had a problem with them having that natural chemistry, because Paul Heyman learned that he can't be persuaded by his heart because he got burnt by Roman Reigns and CM Punk. He'd rather be with Seth Rollins, where it's purely business and transactional. That's the way that I looked at it. It didn't hurt for me.
I will say I care more about whether they deserve credit or it was a happy coincidence. I care more than you, Jason, about it. It's fair that you don't, but I'm curious, genuinely, did they just benefit from something that was actually a failure what they're trying to do, but it just worked out fine? Or were they really clever and go, let's lean into the lack of chemistry here because that'll serve our purpose when we get to this point? Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I don't think they got together thinking, hoping that there wouldn't be chemistry between them. But it wasn't working out for whatever reason. Seth wasn't really very flexible. He didn't seem to connect with the other three, and they took lemons and made some lemonade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, Jason, more on this, or do you want to bring something else up?
I guess just my other observations from last night. Well, like I said, I mean, is there anything that you guys wanted to talk? I mean, there is one thing, like a small thing. Did any of you guys notice that there was a bit of like a Rusev chant at the end of what was happening with Rhea and Asuka? Asuka gave Rhea the DDT on the table. Mm-hmm. Then there was a bit of a Rusev Day chant. I'm not sure if you picked up on that.
Did they do the DDT on the table right before going to a break?
So that's what I was saying.
That's what I'm. Yeah.
Rusev cut a promo during the break, right? But he was set up for at least 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of distracting from what was going on. They're trying to do this heavy angle with Rhea being DDT'd. The crowd were chanting Rusev Day, and Rusev, to his credit, was making like the no sign, like, no, don't chant my name. Now's not the time. Like, focus on what's going on there. But that's not the crowd's fault because he was set up there where the crowd could see him for at least 3 minutes. So
yeah, no, they were at a commercial break during all that.
Okay. And I'll tell you someone who got really over. There was an interview with Maxine Dupree during a commercial break, and she got a great reaction.
Wow.
So, yeah, she got a real. She was talking about she's got an Intercontinental title match next week, and the crowd were chanting, "You deserve it," and got more of a bigger reaction than what I thought. But I put that down to us Australians. We like the Aussie battler. We like someone who has a go. It's like a saying we have over here, get in there, have a go. So, yeah, she got a great reaction too during the break.
My question for you is, how did the Bayley Libra Valkyria dynamic play out in front of the crowd?
I think that played out really well. The crowd were excited to see. I'm not sure if this is Bayley's first time in Australia, to be honest with you. Definitely in Perth, I would imagine. So the crowd enjoyed that. And they also enjoyed the confrontation afterwards with Stephanie Vaquer and Roxanne Perez.
Mm-hmm.
A bit of oohing and ahhing with what Roxanne was saying in the comebacks for Stephanie Vaquer. So that got over quite well too. Pretty much everything got over well. But that main event was particularly hot. All the baby faces were over. And then the last bit, like I said, coming out of that arena, just a genuine buzz in the air about what happened. So,
it did air on Netflix, Jason. Michael Cole talking to the audience and thanking them and announcing the 40,000 plus over 3 nights, and I thought that was nice. I am very on record being against WWE celebrating their $1 billion TV rights deals and thinking as Steve Austin would say, any working man coming home, grabbing dinner and sitting down to unwind in front of the TV set does not want to hear about how successful WWE's top executives are at adding tens of millions more dollars and more houses and more rooms and more yachts to their portfolio of what they own. What they want is a wrestler that is on a journey that they relate to and can cheer for, and somebody they don't like who represents things that bug them in the world who they can root against. And WWE gets too wrapped up in boardroom talk and puts it on television and expects everyone to be all about rah, 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 the brand. Think we're so happy that you millionaires are even richer. However, when you go to a country like Australia and you have that kind of passionate crowd response, 3 out of 4 nights, well, I shouldn't say it. 3 shows in a row. There happened to be an off day, but I want to make it sound like there's a night that didn't get a reaction. But to have big crowds, passionate crowds into the product, and it's not a place you go very often. And for some wrestlers, the first time they were there, I think that's when you pull it out and you go, you want to show the world how popular you are worldwide, and you want to give a little pat on the back to Australia for thank you for liking us. Thank you for coming here. Yeah.
Well, listen, look, they said it right. And they stood up and they applauded themselves on Michael Cole and Wade Barrett. I think this went over better than what they probably even thought too, with the reaction, with everything, with Cena with the yellow shirts, which felt like a home NBA game, and I think saying the 40,000 fans, and they left it at that. Like if they would have said, thank you, we had 40,000 people here in total for a gross amount of, I'm glad they didn't put that in because that's,
Jason, Goodfellas says Triple H always talking about the gate is wild to me at press conferences. He thanks everyone who attended and paid the most ever to be there. Thank you for letting us charge you the highest ticket prices ever. Yeah, good point, Jason.
They didn't go there. Like that would have cracked me up if they said that. Would have been like, wait a minute, I can't believe we paid that amount. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Save it for your emails and to your boss and the TKO executives. Honestly, I mean, this notion that people in powerful positions who just eat, sleep, breathe numbers and data and revenue, they just come across as so out of touch with their audience when they start bragging on television about that stuff. I mean, it's not relatable, and it's not why people watch wrestling. And in fact, I think it builds resentment, especially when you're watching 2 hours of wrestling that takes 3.5 hours now because there's so many damn commercials on what used to be commercial-free PLEs. You used to pay more for them, although WWE Network, you pay $10 a month and you didn't get ads. In-house stuff here and there to promote tickets or merch, but now when they're just garbage, I mean, it's I love my Roku box, but it's ridiculous now. Yesterday just started logging in on my Google TV that's built into my TV because Roku takes you to their $2.99 pay service plug. Every time you push pause, there's ads on the screen. When you push play again, it opens a random app because I suspect that they get paid by apps to be the app that launches without you requesting it when you push when you try to unpause a show that you pause for 5 minutes because you let the dog out. And it's so busy and jumbled and distracting now. It used to be one of the cleanest ways to watch apps on television, and now I'm ready to switch. It's just they just crossed the line with me. And I say that as a personal anecdote. I wonder how many WWE fans are thinking WWE's crossed the line for me. They are not respecting my time. 5 matches, 3.5 hours, and half of his commercials, and I'm paying $20 some a month now instead of just 10 or 6, like for Peacock for some people, or free. So yeah, I just think they have to be careful, because when you're not respecting people's time and you're gouging them left and right with advertisements and increased price for the same product or fewer matches, and you're riding high and you're just kind of arrogant about how you can do nothing wrong, and how good business is when you're kind of riding the wave of past good decisions and you haven't felt the weight of the current year's bad decisions. I think there's a break point for some people, and I think they should be a little more humble and a little more appreciative and stop gouging. I know they are bean counters, and I know the people at TKO don't watch the product. All they care about is, did we do more in this category than we did last quarter? But at some point, you've got to have your eye on if the consumer satisfaction more than just eking out every last penny and dime and dollar that you can from your consumers and squeezing in extra ad breaks. It just, when you're that successful and you're that big, if this was a small business just trying to get by, if this was Vince McMahon in 1995, I'd be more forgiving. Like, they're just trying. That was a big company then relative to territories, but it was still a relatively small family business that was vulnerable to Ted Turner. And Vince liked to tell that story. That they're fine. They don't need that extra commercial break. That's just greed and a lack of courtesy to their customers who put them in this spot.
Speaking of which, it seems that Netflix punishes viewers for tuning in during the live broadcast, because if you tune in the next day, there's no commercials. But if you even watch 5 minutes of the during the live broadcast, no matter how long it takes you to get through it, you have to sit through all the commercials, even days later.
It's interesting. I think it's different for different people, and I don't know why in week to week. Because if I start Raw 20 minutes late, I get to speed through commercials till I'm live.
Oh, wow.
But I've heard other people can't. And I need to. Like, I'm covering the show live and I do a post show afterwards. So, but then when I watch it, when the show is completely done and I rewatch it, I get commercials, but I can fast forward through them just as I can watching live. Once I catch up live, though, then you have to watch. Obviously, you can't fast forward to the future.
Sure.
So you have to watch them. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get any commercials, and if I'm watching Raw on a replay, I don't get no commercial. But I miss out on the interviews they do when they might be airing commercials. So on the replay, I'm not sure if I'll get the Rusev interview, which is very passionate. It had a pretty cool line in there about leaving Penta in the dirt or something like that. It's a pretty cool line. And then the great ovation that Maxine got, which I think really took her back, and it's just people getting involved in the story. So I'm not sure if I'm going to get that back, but I never get commercials, and I pay about $20 a month for Netflix. So I don't know why some people get commercials.
I never thought about that if you get the commercial-free version of Netflix, but the show's live, they got to fill it with something other than commercials, so you get bonus content, either the match or a promo. But when you replay it, they just condense it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't get the in-between.
And wait, Paul, those promos actually pretty good, because what ends up happening is that it's either Jackie Redmond or Kathy Kelly, and they're talking to a wrestler, and you've got the backdrop of the crowd. It's kind of like that old school that me Gene Oakland used to do. We could see the crowd in the background, and it makes the wrestlers look like big stars, that there's all these people to hear what they've got to say. So, I wish more people would see these promos, because they're actually quite effective and good.
Yeah, I didn't get the Maxine Dupree promo.
Right. No,
she was over. She got a great.
She put on a spirited performance. It was clumsy as all heck, but man, you adore her because she's trying so hard, and they frame. Like, it's one thing to be clumsy if you're not supposed to be. Like, LA Knight was kind of clumsy, and it wasn't his gimmick. Her gimmick is, she's clumsy, but look what she does with her fighting spirit and her determination, and it's kind of a get out of a missed move free card.
She's well cast, and it's certainly
yes, very very much so. Yep.
Dirty Dom was way over too. I have to mention that. Him and Penta, they both got great reactions. So that was almost like two baby faces for the crowd. And at times, like, Dom played into it, and then he tried to shut it down. But I mean, if you're a heel and you're getting cheered like that, I mean, what do? You know what I mean? The crowd's not going to boo you, and they loved it. So it is what it is.
Yeah, that's a great question. Why is Dom getting cheered? What do you guys think? Because he certainly is acting like a heel.
I mean, because he's, and this isn't a dig, there's Eddie Guerrero, like the bellwether fans, so to speak, the ones who remember Eddie love him, and Eddie is, in spirit his son, and DNA will lead that to the storyline. It's unexpected, and I don't think they can put their finger on it, but he's gotten better, and there's just sort of like the way he reacted to, I'm the only fighting champion around here, and then that backfired, and now Finn and JD have to defend the titles because of him, and then they rub it in his face going, who should tell your cohorts about you're inspiring us to make them defend their title? And he's like, no, like he's, in the way he backed away backstage when he's just he's entertaining. Now, ideally, as long as he's a heel, he should get booed. But if the story is he's going to be the babyface coming out of the Judgment Day, we're okay with him being cheered. I think you can tell that story too, but he's like a rare exception to that. Generally, you want to be booed until your turn. But there's a genuine affection people have for him. Why is Dom cheered? In part because he's Ray's son. I mean, but it's an either or. It's an either or, because if you get the go away heat nepotism, you have to hit a certain threshold of being entertaining and good and perceived as hardworking and talented on the mic and having good matches and seeming like, kind of in a meta sense, a good dude. If you check all those boxes, nepotism's forgiven, and now you're the son of Ray and we love you. But if you don't check those boxes and it looks like you're getting a push only because of whose son or daughter you are, I won't say anything about NXT's GM, then fans will turn harder on you. So I think it's like they'll turn hard against you or turn harder for you if your father was popular. So there's more pressure to be really good. And frankly, Dom has been really good.
I got to push back there. Well, Jason, I'm interested. Did you have a comment?
No, go for it, Paul.
Yeah, Dom's really good. Really, I think Dom's
really in
well.
Every single way. He is, and I've been saying it for 2 years. He always showed signs of being great. I've been on the Dom bandwagon before anybody, and other people have hopped on, Paul, and you will eventually too. But go ahead, make your case.
I don't know. I will eat I'll eat my hat if I do. But his look, subpar. Come on, he does not look like somebody. He doesn't look like a superhero in any way.
I don't think he's trying to look like a superhero.
Sorry,
he's not trying to look like a superhero. There's an ironicness. I mean, he's a heel without a natural muscular physique, but I don't think you disqualify. Well, go ahead, Paul. I shouldn't interrupt. Go ahead.
I hear you. He is well cast as a guy who seems incapable of physically competing with the men he's in the ring with. I think his ring skills are there. I agree with you. They've improved a lot, but they're still lower than average. He's not that good there on the mic. I think he lacks charisma. I think he's booked really well. I think he is the Maxine Dupree of the men's division, and it works. He has to cheat in order to win, because there's no way you could see him winning in any other way.
Darrell in the chat says, I'm becoming the #1 Dom fan because of this chat. I keep saying Dom is a future. He's getting better and better. If he was in the bronze spot in the vision, I bet that turn would have worked. So Paul, I would say that what you say doesn't sound crazy because of the number of other people who have said what you said, some of whom have jumped on the bandwagon, by the way, and some who still haven't. But I watch Dom and I appreciate, and this goes to my thing about, are we really going to reward the high spot spammers and the gifted athletes who actually don't know how to tell a story and do the nuance? I think Dom is really good and getting better about what he does in between spots with body language. He knows his character, and he's not out there trying to be a star rating merchant. He's out there to work against his opponent. And at this point, he is the guy, and I think he'll change when he turns babyface and gets more of a push. I'm not saying he's going to be the centerpiece, like babyface who's the next, replaces Cody Rhodes. I'm actually not ruling out that he'll carve his own niche and be a top world champion WrestleMania main eventer. I'm not ruling that out, but I'm not putting money on it. But I'm not with confidence ruling it out. But I don't want that to be the standard that I set, or else I was wrong about him. What I'm saying is there are so many things he does well that are different than things everyone else on the roster does well. The top traits of a lot of people on the roster are not Dom's top traits.
Mm-hmm.
Dom's has weaknesses that most people don't have, but he makes up for it with strengths that most people don't have. This is a point I'm clunkily trying to make here.
Okay.
And so people have an affection for him because of his facial expressions, his body language. He's such a weasel, but he's a weasel in a way that's just like sort of adorable. And like, you're just like, what's he going to do this time to try to weasel his way out of that situation that he got himself into? But I think in the end, people are like, it's sort of like MJF tried to do. You're an asshole, but you're our asshole. Like, I think with Dom, it's like, yeah, you're a weasel, but you're our weasel. And we want to see you not be a weasel because we think there's enough talent there to be resourceful enough to take down some of these heels. Sadler version 3, this caught my eye. I felt like Paul 5 years ago when Dom first debuted. He's improved a lot. I agree, isn't great in the ring, but he's becoming good enough in WWE style of work to be upper mid card and eventually main event. That's why I say, Paul, check. We're not going to quiz you every time you're on the show, but in a year, let's remember this date and see if you're like, I kind of want over by Dom, or no, if you're in the same spot. I love you pushing back on me, and I love you having different opinions. I mean, this makes for good podcasting, and I know you're not manufacturing it. We don't want that. It's good for conversation, but I am genuinely very curious if in 6 months or 12 months you feel the same way. You're like, yeah, I was a little slow, but now I kind of see what you guys are saying about Dom. We'll see. Maybe I'll turn and I'll be like,
I
Paul,
look
you were
forward
right.
to that day, but I do think there's a chance that you might be seeing things differently as well.
I don't know. It's hard to imagine.
I mean, guys, for me, right, the other thing with Dom, the aspect is that we've sort of seen him grow up in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who would have ever thought that his character would have been as entertaining as he is? And I think there's a sense from the crowd. It's like, you have over and above exceeded our expectations. We saw you as sort of this bland baby face, didn't have much to you, but you've really excelled in this role. And I think it's taken people by surprise. But it's also, I mean, as much as we can criticize sometimes the writing and the creative in WWE, the creative for Dom has just been on point from him being teamed up with Rhea Ripley and being subservient to her.
Oh,
so, I mean,
yes, getting the women is that's why he's getting cheered too, because he got Rhea, he got Liv. I'm sorry, some people are probably yelling at us like, why didn't you lead with that, Wade? Yeah. Dom is over because he gets the girls, so to speak.
Yep,
exactly.
Yep.
I mean, he's matched up with Rhea, then he goes to Liv. Yeah, but the other thing is, I mean, the idea of him going to jail for a day and then coming out as if he's, like he's a tough and hardened criminal.
Oh, I love it.
I mean, the writing for Dom has been just so good. It's like everything has just been a hit with him. And like you said, Wade, like when he walked in last night and he saw Rusev, then he sort of backed away. That was hilarious. It's just been
Jason,
on
I
point.
think you really hit on something, that the writing for Dom is on point. That is the secret sauce. So
you're not even going to give Dom credit or are you going to give him credit for executing the writing?
He's
of course.
Yeah,
no, Wade, I am definitely. Like I'm saying, like we're very quick to bag the writing or whatever, but we got to give credit where credit is due. Whoever's coming up with these ideas, and Dom was executing it brilliantly. I mean, the whole thing about him going to jail, then he rocked up with that entrance when he was coming out like he was a hardened criminal and everything. I mean, it's bit by bit has been tremendous. But again, it gets back to the writing. Whoever's idea it was to put Charlotte with Alexa Bliss was tremendous. I mean, Charlotte she was getting go-away heat after only coming back 3 months after being out for a year. And you look at Bronson Reed, look at the way they have meticulously booked Bronson Reed. After stop-starts, they've been consistent with him. They've pushed him. He got the victory against Roman Reigns. He's had victories against Randy Orton. They've teamed him up with Seth and Braun Breaker and Paul Heyman. We've got to give credit where credit is due. Sometimes it's easy to knock people, but the writers, but they've got it. They have gotten things right. And 3 people that stand out for me this year. Obviously, the Dominic Mysterio, how well he's doing with his character. Charlotte Flair being rejuvenated, being with Alexa Bliss, and now Bronson Reed being a genuine main eventer.
Good 3 list. That's a good top 3 list. But Paul, do you think Roderick Strong or Humberto would have done as well with the writing as Dom has done? Just grabbing two sort of random names.
Yeah, right. That's a great question. I can't be sure, but I think so. Yes, I think he is handed a great script, and I agree he does not overact. I'll give him that. He's reasonably understated, but I do not think he's a compelling speaker. I think he's handed great material, and the fact that he isn't a great speaker almost works in his favor. I think it almost is part of the whole act.
I think everything works in his favor, and I think they're writing for him, and it's working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Somebody in the chat here was this Coach Matt says the fact that Paul thinks that way about Dom is a testament to how well he's doing at his job. How well Dom's doing. Like sometimes dudes say that to people like, I can't stand him. And I'm like, that's the emotion they want, and that means they're being successful. I know you're saying something different, Paul, but it's still a funny comment. Sadler goes, yeah, early Dom was awful. If you ask me after his first year, I thought there was a better chance he'd either if he'd be main event or released, I would have guessed he would have been released. See, I predate that. I thought, like, going back to when Dom was standing next to Ray, I said, he's going to be a good punk ass, like, rebellious teenager. And I'm on record saying that.
Wow.
Like, when he was with Ray, I'm like, look at that guy. You just want to smack him. Like, he's got a face you just want to smack. And I was like, he's just going to just turn just slightly, and then in his attitude and rebel, and then amplify certain traits, and it's going to be money. I mean, and I'm just saying, Paul, you think he's still a failure and should be cut? Okay, or he's a mid card, lower mid.
No. Yeah, he's doing his role.
It should be cut.
I love that I gave you that. I wanted to trigger you when I did. It was perfect. I know you weren't necessarily saying he'd be cut, but you wouldn't. If he was, you wouldn't think, what are they thinking? You'd just be like, well, I was right. Eventually they saw his limitations.
Right now he's on a roll, so you don't cut someone who's on a roll. But if he rises significantly higher than he is now, I will be surprised. So
yeah, here we. Mr. Freshman 92 says, I remember Wade saying that about Dom 5 years ago, and I thought he was insane, but he was so right. I love when people back up things that sound outlandish and can't possibly be true, and they remember. Thank you for that. Sadler version 3 adds, I do think there's a question about Dom's mic work as a serious character. I don't know if he could cut a long WWE style babyface promo like Cody and Punk do at this point. I guess we won't know till we see. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly areas, Paul, that he hasn't been tested in yet. And that's why I said I don't know if he's going to be an upper mid-card kind of cult figure who's around for a long time, beloved, or does he have a next gear? Can he look into the camera and make people believe that he is good enough to work a main event match against a main event heel, a heel Braun Breaker, a heel whoever? But I think he's passing tests right now. I do. DDM in the chat goes, who would have thought Dom with his mullet, stash, ugly tattoos, and new neck tattoos would be adorned by the WWE crowd? I've been a Dirty Dom fan since he kicked Edge in the Grapefruits. Let's see. Azan White says, I'll put Dom as a Mania main eventer for $50. He wants to take that bet.
All right. Azan, hit me up on Insta.
Let's do it. DDM says, Dom doesn't need to look like Lex Luger to be a star. He has unique attributes that people have grown to love. All right. Cool. Oh, interesting. Cavanti Smalls goes, Dom's promos have been greatly reduced compared to his Monster Heat in 2023. Mr. Freshman goes, I've been a fan of Dom's for 20 years. All right.
Who's your daddy?
Jason, anything else you want to add?
No, I think you covered it all with Dom. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in general, beyond Dom.
Just about. Well, I'll leave it at that for the overall weekend. Like, I went to all 3 shows and had a great time. So I think it was an overall success for WWE, and I hope it came across well on TV for you guys watching in the States. I mean, you're used to it. You go to wrestling events all the time. We don't get to go to major wrestling events all the time. So for us, it was a major deal, and I hope that the energy that was in the arena, that it came across well on TV. At least you guys enjoyed it. And I hope we didn't get borderline annoying, as I feel like some international crowds can get.
No, you didn't.
I don't think we weren't all about ourselves or coming up with random chants that had nothing to do with the match or the product.
No more so than any American crowd these days. I mean, you bought into the, Roman Reigns, the singing.
Yeah,
but, I mean, I'm like, that's virus has spread and is uncontrolled.
Virus, yeah. It's the Daddy Cool virus. It's from that song Daddy Cool by Boney M.
Well, they should have burned down the island before the vampire angel flew off of it and infected everybody else. That's a spoiler, but I won't say for what show. I tell you what, I hope that Asuka chant doesn't pick up. You don't want people saying that. Yeah. But you were better in ways that are good and no worse in ways that are bad than a typical crowd. Jason.
Agreed. Perth was good. I didn't
So we're not
love
getting
them
cut?
chanting the Bailey song. I think they weren't perfect, but you guys were really good.
Oh, that Bailey one, I don't know. I like to come up. I like to come up with original stuff. I don't like it when we steal from other audiences. So yeah.
By the way,
the wanker one's a good one though.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, Colin Barrett had fun with that.
Yeah.
By the way, if you said this, I apologize for. Did Penta? Because we talked a lot about Tom. Was Penta over? Did it seem like? Oh
Yes.
my God, Penta's here.
Yes, he was over. Both of them were over.
Yeah.
Both of it. They didn't get boos. I mean, Dom didn't get any boos. Penta didn't get. This was like two baby faces facing one another. But I would say it was more Dom, say 65-35. But Penta did not get booed. People enjoyed Penta. And the two main event matches beforehand, once again, it featured Grayson Waller. He was up against Otis, and Waller won that match.
Otis.
And he played the complete babyface, and Otis, he played babyface too. Like, had a toy koala, and he was very nice to it and all the rest of it. So it was like trying to say, I know I'm facing Waller here, and he's the hometown guy, but please, I'm being nice to a toy koala, so please don't boo me.
Wow.
And then it was American Made versus the War Raiders, and War Raiders won that one. So those were the two main event matches before.
Good to know. I meant to ask that. I'm glad you threw that in. Jason, thank you so much. What a great time to have you on these shows to give us in-person reports, which you don't do too often, but hopefully WWE will be back, and you'll be back, and we'll get more of them.
And I didn't mind waking up early to do this. So I'm hoping in future you stop complaining, because it actually gets quite irritating.
Wow. I say nice things and then you end on that note, man.
Yeah, big swerve, eh? Big swerve. Like
You totally.
Yeah, take it easy, guys. Good on you, Wade. See you, Paul.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason.
All right. Let's bring Darrell into the conversation next. Darrell, welcome. What's on your mind about Raw tonight?
How you doing today, Wade and Paul?
Good. You're not on camera tonight on purpose?
I'm fixing my camera. I'm gonna cut it on in a second.
Yep. No pressure. I just usually are, so I just didn't know if you knew or not. So.
Oh yeah. Now, the first thing y'all was sitting there talking about Dom. So since in the chat, I number seem like becoming the number one Dom fan. I would say we overlook a lot of things that Dom has done. The Judgment Day, before he came into the Judgment Day, was floundering, even with Edge, even when they added Finn Balor, all of that. And you could say he played a big part of Rhea Ripley finding her way back and getting over as the way she was, because they both were over at the time. And the Judgment Day whole movement was based off of Dom getting booed, where they didn't want him to talk. And now he done worked his way through that, where most people would have probably crumbled. He worked his way through that. Now the fans and everybody want to cheer him, even though he's getting more clever with how he's doing the heel stuff, with the taking a hammer, putting it in his boot, to also go with the 619 and all that other stuff. So we don't play that too much in parts of it too. He lifted a couple of people with him. You probably wouldn't have got Rhea Ripley being back to where she is now, or Damian Priest. You wouldn't have never got Damian Priest, because he got played off of Dom.
Darrell, basically what you're saying to Paul is Dom is responsible for this boom period, and he is the reason for the new Netflix and ESPN deal.
Yes, I'm saying that.
I mean, I say that like it's absurd, but I mean, he's part of it. I'm not saying what you're saying is crazy. I mean, Bob obviously is a part of a mosaic of contributors, not the sole or primary one, but you're making good point. I mean, I think JD McDonough has been great in his body language as a background player. I don't think he could be as much of a lead as Dom. I think Dom has rejuvenated Finn Balor with their dynamic. I think his boyfriend chemistry with Rhea and Liv and playing off of Roxanne, it's like he does it. There's a charisma there that wouldn't work if they had slotted him in a traditional spot. But the fact that he isn't slotted there because he wouldn't be good shouldn't be held against him, because they have curated and edited and steered him into a position where he excels. And you just made the checklist of examples, Darrell, of where he has excelled. Paul is just squirming with all these compliments for Dom, that he started, and now we're just. But
agreed. I mean, Dom was great for Rhea. I totally agree.
Mhm.
But it's because he was so bad. It created so much resentment when you see that, the beautiful girl who's hanging out with some loser. I mean, who doesn't have an emotional, visceral reaction?
Yeah, but he was so bad because they had him playing something, the white meat baby face. And I would always remember Wade first coming out and saying he shouldn't be playing this because you can't follow Rey Mysterio being that. And they was trying to have him follow Rey and playing a character that he should have never played.
Yeah.
And
I
now
think
they
he
found
got his
something that fit
athletic
his
skill from
personality.
his mother. Yeah.
what's
And his
that called?
I think Dom inherited his athleticism from his mother.
Oh, wow.
And his height. And his height. Because what, he about 6'2".
Wow. No,
And he's 20.
he's not 6'2".
He's not.
Who is he?
I thought he was about 6'2".
Well,
About 6'2".
everybody in wrestling who's 5'9" is 6'2".
And when they're next to Ray, they look like they're 6'5".
I think Dom's probably. I mean, 5'9" is probably understanding, but I think he's 5'10", legit. Yeah.
And he's 27 years old, so him and Braun Breaker, they around the same age. You can build a little bit around there. Now I want to go back to something that y'all been talking heavily on, and y'all gave it more talk than probably WWE, and that was their vision and the whole angle. And I see Braun come out, and I guess they're gonna keep the name The Vision. So they're gonna keep their name and go with it. But I still say doing this angle, it has to be because he hurt or something like that, because Seth is hurt, because you just messed up so many different people. Now you come back Monday, Becky got to be a heel, right? She got a title match.
Yep.
You messed
Great
that
point.
up. You finna turn her face?
Well, they've been, how do I put it? Not inconsistent, because that has connotations. They haven't consistently featured Becky and Seth together. They are a professional couple who have their own offices, their own floors, their own departments. They happen to work for the same company, but they're not just walking around together in the hallways all the time. Like, they have created enough separation that I think Seth can do his thing and Becky can do her thing, and they can be independent. It's not as clunky as like Renee and Moxley in AEW, where it's like Moxley's trying to murder people and Renee's like, well, I'm still got to make dinner. I still got to, hang out with him afterwards and watch Netflix and chill. But yeah, I mean, I'm not super in favor of him trying to kill the people I'm trying to interview. I mean, it's so awkward, but that's AEW's fault for allowing a fourth grader to book the show sometimes. But this isn't quite that awkward, but Becky can just go, that's his business. I'm focused on me. And I think people will mulligan that.
But it did kind of have them both in the same group. And if you want to keep
for the mixed tag angle
more here,
AJ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she kind of was in there with Paul, and she was the one that brought up, hey, do you want me to tell Paul something? Right. Or you can, if you want to keep Becky even more heel, have Braun walk up to her next week and say, pick or choose what you want. Just the same thing he gave to Brunson.
I think they've had them hang out together on TV, but not consistently enough where you're surprised when they're not together. And it always felt like they were together because they are married, but you imagine they aren't just always together. Like, I don't think they went so far where they're just inside. Like, it'd be weird if AJ Lee was doing her own thing and Punk was never around. Like, that'd feel kind of weird because they're so seen as a couple right now. I don't know. I think they'll be fine. I'm not saying it isn't inconvenient, but I think they'll be fine if Becky kind of just doesn't even bring it up and does her own thing. It's not ideal, though.
Then, okay, do Seth drop the title? Do they strip it, or do they write him off TV for the next couple of weeks until Saturday night, and then have him coming off like, I'm just big hurt and I lose to CM Punk? Then that kind of derails the next champion to a point, unless you're going to put the title on Braun and let him go through people.
They could retire the belt.
That's true too.
We're just going to have one world champ again because that helped us get a boom period in business, and we're not going to have a de facto secondary champion, as a phrase was coined last week that rang a little too true.
But that hurts as well because you don't have no top heel. You have Seth was the top heel. You might as well say on both shows he was the number one top heel. Right now you have no number one heel. Even with Braun turning, people don't like Seth. That made him look babyface.
Yeah, I gotta write my SmackDown and Raw depth chart out, like just like I have it handy on my screen, kind of like as a reference point. I haven't updated in a while, way too long, because it is these are days when it'd be good to have that in front of you. Go, okay, here's a candidates to turn, here's a candidates to elevate, here's a candidates to call up from NXT, but they're in a situation where they gotta. I don't want to see Levesque lean even harder into 3 and 4 baby faces fighting each other and feuding with each other and demeaning each other and coming across as pathetic or needy or rude or insecure or mean-spirited. Like, and you kind of have to if you're going to cut a promo on somebody, but it's become excessive.
Yeah. Well, we certainly got Brock coming back, so there's that. And I do wonder if that's where they're going with Jay. I mean, it does seem like he's going to a dark place. I like the story they're telling, but it's hard to see him coming back from this.
Yeah. I'm sorry, going back to your first question, I do not know what they're going to do with title. I've thought about it today a little bit, but I mean, I just don't, I think it's a conundrum, and I don't think there's an obvious great solution right now. The most likely scenario is there's on a Raw soon or at tonight's main event. I'm not going to wait 2 months. They put the belt on the line with the 4 top contenders in a fatal 4-way, and there's no rules, because when you have more than 2 people, you have to throw all the rules out. That's just stupid, but the way the world works. And there'll be whatever. I'm doing a side rant now, but yeah, they'll just do a triple threat or 4-way, and there'll be a winner, and it won't feel like a real championship, and it'll suck. And but that's, I mean, it's a bad break, but again, Seth didn't need to do that move. I know it's cool, but he didn't need to do that move.
So if Seth took a tsunami,
it's like
Paul,
it's like a quarterback running to gain 2 extra yards when he already got a first down, and he gets tackled and they tear his knee ligament or his shoulder on the tackle, and everyone on the team's like, we need you to be our quarterback. We needed to be healthy. We didn't need those 2 extra yards. We can get that on first down when he had off to a running back. Why did you go for 2 extra yards instead of running out of bounds? We already had the first down. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel about what Seth does, what Ospreay does, what Omega does. Like, there's so many wrestlers who they go for the extra 2 yards and they get hurt and they hurt their team. And it's not a team sport on TV, but behind the scenes it is. I just want to sneak that in. Sorry, Paul. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, agreed. The coast to coast, in retrospect, was not worth it. Does Seth does he take a lot of unnecessary risks in your eyes, Wade?
I don't think he's as bad as Ospreay, but yes, I do. I think he's a spot merchant who's trying to have great matches, and I don't think he has to go as far as Roman Reigns in the other direction. Darrell, you were nodding along yes to that when Paul said it. You agree he does? Yeah,
he does too much. He does too much.
I don't think he's the worst, but you don't have to be the worst to have ultimately pay a price over time, and I think he does pretty consistently.
And he should be somebody who be winding down to be in part-time anyway. He shouldn't have to do that, because he don't have to do that anymore.
There's a style you wrestle to get over, and there's a style you wrestle to stay healthy and make money. And that's a saying in wrestling in so many words. And Seth hasn't flipped the switch, because he still just wants to be, he's kind of jealous of the people like Ospreay who get more praise than him. And so he wants to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. And he should, I think, in the culture that he's grown up in and been raised in as a wrestler, he should admire the WWE style more, and the wisdom, frankly, of it. I mean, I think Roman Reigns goes too far with it, but I also sort of admire he has the agency at this point to not risk having to do 9 months of rehab on his knee or his shoulder. He's wrestling not out of need, but sort of out of a courtesy to WWE, and because it's kind of fun, but it doesn't make sense for him to take risks at this point. Other wrestlers who are hungry and want to stand out do, but I think the promotion should discipline them and make it clear, and I think they do in a lot of cases. I think people like Seth falls in this zone where he has enough agency to do what he wants and no one can stop him, but there's a bigger risk of something going wrong and it throwing off a storyline, which is happening too often.
Roman got a guard tier aura, so even with him doing that, his aura carries the match. Seth, I'm thinking what probably played into it too, maybe a slight, is him coming on after the AJ Styles and John Cena match. Now you got to feel like you got to justify being the main event following a match like that.
I get that, and it's weird. Cody is not, Cody, I think he isn't a gifted at it's not a choice for Cody. Cody cannot be Will Ospreay, Seth Rollins, AJ Styles.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said for the fact that if you can, it doesn't mean you have to. And so maybe there is, you go downshift to 70% 70% of what you do to get closer to Cody and Roman. You still have a little extra flair, but you make everything count. You make sure that it's a risk you'll look back on and go is worth taking to forward storylines and entertain the crowd and tell the story in the ring. You can still have an edge, but you don't need to have as much of an edge athletically with the big spots you're doing. I mean, they're just things that wrestlers are doing like off the top rope that, not 19 times in a row, it's going to be fine, but that 20th time it's going to be disaster. And it's like, it was needlessly complicated. It's like the Austin Theory's villain who's like, why don't you just kill him? Why do you create this whole contraption that takes 4 days to you want him dead? Just like, if you want to pin somebody, do a more conventional move than something needlessly complicated that puts you at risk, because then it breaks the immersion of someone trying to win a match. I think the number one goal of a wrestler, and I understand there's things baked in that are going to seem like someone from UFC world, no wrestling looks and goes, that's not a real fight. I understand it's sort of arbitrary and subjective, but ultimately you want to look like you're trying to win a fight. You're not trying to put on a flashy show. Like during the Styles Cena match, and Bear's like, there's no moves left. And I'm like, well, first of all, there are, but let's say there aren't. You actually can do a move you already did again. Right. Like, there wasn't a rule in this match. You only got to do every spot once, and it had to be a move of a finishing move of one of your opponents. But sometimes there is this feeling of like, you have to have variety. It's like, why? Like, if a guy's down, just keep doing a move that works, that isn't risky, rather than resorting to a risky move. Now, you can take that too far and wrestling becomes boring and repetitive. I'm not advocating for that, but there should be like a wake-up call that, like, you don't have to invent a more dangerous move to earn your keep. Yeah. It just, sometimes the art is in the game in the moment. It's not forwarding the game to something more dangerous.
And think about it like this: he wrestled a guy who wrestled John Cena, and yes, AJ and John maybe had a good match, but I'm still saying Cody versus John match probably was a little bit better than AJ and John Cena, and they did all the moves and all of that. So tell a story, because I always see it like this: when you telling a story in the ring, and let's say, I know Wade say the 3-star specials, and you do the Randy, but if you tell a good story and you Randy level, that story adds 2 to 3 more stars to it alone, because now people invested and they want to see who finna win, who really gonna lose, and then you building up something afterwards. This whole thing is a mess.
Couple related chat comments. Remember your thought, Paul. DDM says, I think Seth would have taken those risks regardless of following Cena versus AJ Styles. As great as he is, he's missed a lot of time in the ring because of his injuries. Sadler Vision 3 goes, I don't think Seth takes as much risk as he did when he first got to the main roster. I think last night was a special occurrence to avoid being overshadowed by Cena AJ. So a couple opposing views there in the chat I wanted to throw in, because I think they both make a case articulately. Paul, you want to add something?
Yeah, so I did want to mention that I agree with Darrell that I thought that the Cena Styles match was a little overrated because of the what you mentioned, Wade, that them pulling all these moves out, it felt more like an exhibition, a show than 2 men in a contest, 2 men who were trying to beat each other, and it kind of took me out of the moment. Yeah.
By the way, the someone in the chat noted that the next Saturday's main event, I'd said Saturday's main event, they're not going to wait 2 months. There is one November 1st. I was just in my head because they're putting tickets on sale for the December 13th Cena final match. That was in my head. But yeah, they could be on they could do it on Raw, but they could also have a world title match on Saturday's main event in just a few weeks here.
That one doesn't have a main event on the 1st in Salt Lake City. That doesn't have a main event right now.
Right. And yeah. So that definitely could be that. I can't recall who. There we are. Yeah, DDM pointed that out. All right. Oh, no, Mr. Freshman did first. So shout out to you. Good to have the chat to point stuff out like that. Okay, Darrell, we're down about 15 minutes. I want to get Sean Plitched on the show too, for sure. And CJ is also on hold. Anything else you want to add that we can cover briefly before we let you go?
Oh, no, that was it right there. But thank you for talking. Yeah,
sure thing. Always good talking to you, Darrell. Thank you.
All right.
See you, Darrell.
All right. Let's you know what? Let's do a brief call with CJ on Bailey, and then we'll run out the clock with Sean. Because CJ said no rush, but please save time to talk about Bailey. Well, we'll rush into it and bring you on. CJ, good to see you. Not too much. We ran so long with Jason, and I think deservedly so. Obviously, not just because it's Jason D from Australia, but he attended the shows. But we are a little short on time because I got to wrap up within 15 here. But yeah, what do you want to bring up about Bailey? I still like your haircut, by the way, CJ.
Thank you.
Yes, all right.
I'm still
It looks
getting
good,
used to
CJ.
it being so short. But first, what did you think about before the match in the locker room with Lyra saying, "What Bailey am I gonna get today? If I don't get the right Bailey,
I love Bailey. It's like, what do you mean?
And then Bailey looks at her like she's crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
get out of here! You're joshing me.
And, someone should tell Bailey to watch back herself on television because she, but obviously, she's going to be like, oh, you're so silly. I was here. I don't need to watch it on TV. I was here. I know what I did, and I didn't do anything like that. I don't know. I didn't enjoy the first skits where you could hear her inner voice. So stupid. Hopefully illustrative, and everyone learned a lesson. We never do anything that's stupid.
I liked it, but
you understand why it's stupid.
Yeah, I get your point.
All right, good. We don't want to go down that road again.
But again, WWE Wrestling has done so many things far weirder than that.
Yes, and we're critical every time, and we shouldn't give them a pass just because they do
That's
dumb
called
things.
wrestle
every
crap.
year.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be mean to your dog for 5 straight years. Doesn't mean if I see you on the 6th year, you should stop. You should keep being mean to your dog because, you did it the last 5 years.
Yeah.
I should have come up with a better example. Like, you don't mow your lawn. I don't mean to bring up animal pet abuse, but you don't mow your lawn every year, and now suddenly, I don't mow my lawn any year, so why should I have to mow it this year? Because it's an eyesore. It still is, just because you didn't do it. All right, I'm wasting time here. Go ahead. CJ, yes, Bailey's been fun. It's rejuvenated her character. Lyra, I think, is playing out. We talked about Dom bringing out, like, the dynamic in the Judgment Day brought out the best in Dom. He helped bring out the best in other people in unexpected ways. I think we're seeing that with Lyra. I think Lyra's looking better too. What do you think, Paul, about that? That Lyra actually has something to do that she's more comfortable in her own skin doing.
That, I think you hit on it. She seems much more comfortable being the straight man to Bailey's eccentricity than going out there on her own. So I think it's been good for her too.
Yep.
So did you like Lyra slapping Bailey? What did you think about that to get her into the trance or whatever?
I did, although it was awkward because Asuka was doing it in a bullying, mean way, and I want to put the proper hesitation and context around this because I don't feel like they crossed a line, but I'm raising a yellow flag. Barrett said something like, sometimes you need to slap somebody to straighten them out, like to get, like, I think you have to be a little careful, and maybe even even though it's a woman, female on female, like a little careful that it doesn't sound like you're sort of endorsing that sometimes someone just needs to be slapped to, like, straighten them out. Like, so I'm just, again, the context was fine. Here's a quote. Cole said Kyrie is scared to death to lose to Rhea. Oh no, that was different. And he said some people respond well to that. I guess that was probably it. That she's some people respond well to that, and the implication is getting bullied and slapped. You can respond well to it, and that justifies it. And I don't think even a heel commentator should really be saying that. I think that's enters dangerous territory. Okay, that as a parenthetical said, mostly I'm against because it's two segments back to back with someone getting slapped to bring something out of them. And I think they each deserve to be the only angle that involves a slap to bring something out of somebody. And I think it waters it down when two are doing it, unless the story is one person is emulating the other, which certainly isn't the case here. They're both on islands.
Yeah, it's interesting to see this sort of Jekyll and Hyde sort of Festus type character where Bailey suddenly flips and becomes someone different. I think this was their most successful week in pulling it off in an entertaining and enjoyable way. It'll be really interesting to see how they can put different variations on this going forward.
Yeah.
So do you think every week now, if they're not winning their match, Lyra would slap Bailey?
I do. I mean, it's a little Festus. It is a little Festus-like, where Festus was this kind of, just fun-loving guy, and then the bell would ring, and it was like a trigger. And then he just attacked. And so there's something like that with Bailey. To me, I think you could have an easy out, which is the person overseeing the showrunner, so to speak, looks and goes, wait, we're doing that with Asuka. Let's instead have Kyrie just get in Bailey's face and just clap in her face like 3 times, just bang, 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 and look at her. And it snaps Bailey out of place. Sure. Or shove her. Just give her a shove, and she kind of bounces against the ropes, and then all of a sudden, like, there's other ways you can wake somebody up.
Yep, just
And I
yell in
wish-
her face. That would have worked.
Yeah. Like but like CJ said, if it's something you go back 2 weeks after, it can be kind of a trademark thing. And just like three quick claps right in her face, and she just kind of like snaps out. Wait, what? It's an irritating, and it's in her space. Boom, it triggers something. So there are other ways to do. Yeah.
So who do you think? What do you think they might do with Bailey and Lyra next week?
Any thoughts, Paul?
Yeah, I'd like to see her go a little too far. She riles her up too much. Bailey goes crazy. She, hits a lot of moves, but then she gets herself disqualified or counted out. So they got to she has to find a way to kind of, balance the two different Baileys.
I think we could see this go on for weeks. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's no rush. Like I forget who said it a week or two ago. They could easily stretch this until WrestleMania.
Yep.
Or at least the Rumble or something.
See, I want to give Sean time, so I'm going to kind of cut you short. Is there anything else you want to sneak in? I normally wouldn't be this short with you.
I think I made my point.
Yeah, cool. I'm glad we got to you before we really ran out of time.
Yeah, thanks.
All right.
You're welcome.
All right, Sean from Tennessee. Thank you for calling in. Thanks for waiting patiently. I got about 7 minutes for you here. 8 minutes. Yep. What's on your mind?
No, you do. Real quick, I was going to say just about the whole angle. Like in Wade, you're right. I'm with you on. I just think it's too convoluted right now. The story has to be very good coming out of this, even if Seth is hurt. And the one question I will ask real quick is, I almost do want to give the title, since CM Punk's in a weird spot now because of this. I almost want to give the title to LA for a little bit, let him have it. Even though I know I'm with you, Wade, I would not generally do that, just for any person, like, this person should win. I think LA Knight's doing a really good job. I think the fans are behind him. I think his promos have gotten a lot better during this, even though I don't like the babyface stuff back and forth with each other, getting down on each other. But at the same time, his character is good. So I want to know real quick what you think about LA Knight winning the title and if he could just have a little run with it for a little bit.
I, much like Paul in 6 to 12 months, would be saying, I was wrong about Dom. I don't know if
Paul's wrong.
I've changed. Paul can be right about Dom today, but evolve along the line and go, you guys were wrong then, but I'm in the same place as you now. Dom has actually improved and he's crossed into the threshold so he can save face without, he's agreeing with us with body language. I feel that way about LA Knight right now. People had asked me when LA Knight got pushed initially and was getting good crowd response. I'm like, he does not need to. He's not a world champion level guy. He shouldn't get a world title run just because crowds are popping for him. He's not. I was a defender of him that he was more than a derivative blend of catchphrases of Austin and Rock. I think he was more than that. He showed that in TNA, in NXT. So he deserved better than that. But I don't think he was a transformative centerpiece act. And I'm not for handing out a gold watch to wrestlers. Hey, you got crowd reactions. Now you get a world title reign for a month or two. That said, he's been in the top mix. He has stepped up in the ring. He's not botching his promos. He's not having the obligatory botched move in the ring. I mean, like every third match, but it's not every match anymore. And it's not a big deal, and he recovers well. But it doesn't matter. He's sustained over, and he looks like he belongs when he's standing opposite of Punk. He looks like he belongs opposite of Jay. He looks like he belongs opposite of Seth. And to me, that's just like this. It's sort of just a test, Sean. It's an eye test. Does he look like he belongs there, or does he look like he's beneath him? He looks like he belongs. There are scenarios where I could be okay with LA Knight having a secondary world title run, with the asterisk being I don't think there should be a secondary world title, but I'm not as against it as some. But yeah, there's my answer. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I like your idea, Sean. CM Punk has been on such a long journey that just to win it now because Seth is in this bad spot, it's not great. And I think I agree with you that LA Knight has really stepped up. He has seemed like an alpha in charge in all of his interactions. I see it. I'm with you. I like the idea.
Yeah, quick thing. With the care, still think she should won the title way too soon. But I do. Roxanne Perez is a good foil at this point because they're on a journey with Roxanne, and I think losing for her would be okay right now. Like they could just build her up and have a good, look good in losing, and I think it'll be good with her and Raquel. Like maybe losing back to back will be good for them. And with Kyrie and Asuka, just watch with Kyrie. Don't overplay this. Like we did that with Otis and Gable. It was stupid and it ended dumb. Don't make Kyrie look like an idiot. I know she's a heel, but it makes her look stupid knowing that Asuka's treating her like crap and she's just taking it and taking it.
In fairness, Sean, they have, and they did again I think on Saturday, tell the story that there's a history here, there's a culture here.
Mhm.
That in Japan,
Yes.
you were an understudy. There's this almost a mother-daughter relationship, a mentor-protege over time. Culturally, there's some norms that you're adhering to. That's harder to break away from, and I think they've established that enough that the viewers won't be as hard on her as, say, a Damien Sandow, where you're just like, you're being pathetic, just break away. So I throw that out there. It doesn't mean I like everything that they're doing here, but I think that there's enough difference in a story they're telling in terms of their specific background, the culture, and the age difference that extends it longer than normally I'd be in favor of. But I'm with you. You don't want to wait too long.
Yeah, Jason, that was a great conversation with Jason too. By the way, I wanted to throw that out there. That was good stuff.
I do want to say I think Kyrie is more relevant now than she has ever been in her WWE run.
I agree with that.
As bad as the acting has
That's
been,
true.
Yep.
Something's working.
Yep. Yeah, like Kyrie just sitting and whimpering on her own. It almost feels like believable now, rather than they said, "Okay, we're about to hit record on the camera." Like you sort of feel she's what's a term when you're immersive acting? There's a
method acting.
Method acting. Yeah, you almost feel like she's walking around backstage whimpering and crying, and the camera just goes, "Oh, Kyrie's already crying. We don't need to cue her up. Let's just film it." Like I kind of believe like that's happening now. It's weird. The acting is bad, but it's gotten to the point where you don't see any other side of her, and you think maybe that's just how she's reacting to this now. I don't know. Yeah. What else, Sean? Clock is ticking.
That's it. Go VIP.
No way.
Fun
We
conversation.
got time to fill. You waited all that
No,
time?
we don't. No, we don't, Wade. I know this too well.
All right. I won't stretch it. Thanks, Sean.
See ya.
Appreciate it. Talk to you. Paul, anything else you want to add before we sign off? I mean, don't know if we talked about every aspect of the show. Obviously, we hit the major points, but
yeah. No, I think we hit a lot. Great conversation tonight.
Yeah. Jimmy, what about Jimmy and Jay?
I was getting really annoyed with Face Jay. So I thought Jay was at his best when he was the sort of hostile pit bull for Roman, and I see him going back to that a bit. And I think Jimmy is excellent. I never appreciated what a great job Jimmy does. So I don't know where they're going with it, but it's intriguing and it's engaging.
Yep. All right, a couple chat comments to wrap up here. DDM says, LA Knight, Drew McIntyre, currently the bridesmaid, never the bride. Darrell says, Kyrie is going to come out of this bigger than anyone else in the story. DDM says, Asuka and Kyrie have been great, and we don't miss Dakota Kai at all. Sadler says, yes, this will be great for Kyrie. Sean, who just joined us, says, fun conversation. Jay, turn heel soon, please. Not loving Jimmy right now, but he's a little better. DDM says, do you think we'll see Jay and Sammy have a conversation about Jay's attitude?
I like that idea. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. Jason D says, don't blame me for how long I was on. Wade is in charge. He could have easily cut me off at any time. Just like Paul would have cut Dom from the roster. Let's see.
I think I just turned heel on your podcast tonight.
I'm used to it. Let's see. Luke in the chat earlier said, I've been pretty disengaged from the product, but I'm surprised to see the new Heyman group break up so quickly. Any thoughts on who will be the new leader? I mean, the new leader is going to be Paul Heyman. He's going to reassert being the alpha, and Braun Breaker's his pet project, and Reed is the veteran. I'm interested in if they grow as a threesome. I don't think they'll add someone, but they might. Have you thought of anyone they could add?
Brock.
Yeah, I guess. See that? Yeah, I mean, boy, is that to me like having Seth break from the group and become a babyface opposition has some danger to it, because I think they want Braun Breaker to break from the group, and because people are like, why did Lesnar destroy Cena? Because Braun Breaker is going to beat Brock Lesnar. That's the end game, and they want Lesnar to seem like an unstoppable force. So when Breaker beats him, it means more, because Cena's going to be in the rearview mirror by then. It doesn't matter. Nobody didn't watch him wrestle AJ Styles, and no one didn't enjoy it because Cena got beat by Lesnar. So I get the law of transference there. So anyway, all right.
But certainly Brock coming in could, that there could be tension between them. He just got rid of Seth, and now he's got to deal with another insufferable jerk. So.
My final comment from the chat, Justin Spencer said, how big of a star, Wade, do you think Braun Breaker can be? I'm not ruling out as big a star as Roman Reigns, but I think it's more it's not quite there. I mean, like I need to see more. I don't think he's hit his head on a ceiling yet, but he hasn't shown enough to me to believe that he's going to be a guy who they build 6 years of Central TV around. All right, I got to run. Thanks, Paul. Great talking to you.
Right.
Thanks everybody in the
Wade.
chat. Please like the show, and we'll talk to you next time.
Good night.